Well, good evening, everyone. This is Frank Fear with my partner, Mickey Plumley, Mountaineer Locker Room then and now. So pleased you're with us tonight, either live or in the archive. Unfortunately, Greg, Chris may not be with us. He had a medical appointment in Morgantown today and is on his way back. Was delayed, and we hope he's going to join us later. But Mick, it's good seeing you. How you been doing?
Hey, good seeing you too, Frank. Actually, I'm in withdrawal right now. When I realized about 12:30 a.m. Tuesday morning that it's going to be 207 days before I can watch another college football game.
Yeah, Mickey and I were talking earlier. Mick, for those of you who don't know, was named by John Antoniuk to the All Decade Team, WVU team. He was a great offensive lineman. Last game, a big win in the Peach Bowl in 1969. And, you and I were talking. You look at that IU team, everybody talks about Mendoza, and they should. A great quarterback who's almost certainly going to be the first pick in the NFL draft by the Raiders. But that offensive line, I'm not sure I have ever seen anything quite like that. It struck me, Mick, and you've played the game on that position, like an NFL offensive line.
They were so cohesive together, Frank. I mean, they played as one. One of the amazing stats in that regard, I don't know if you heard of the announcers mention this the other night, but they were outweighed on average by 55 pounds per man compared to Miami's defensive line, which is just an amazing statistic to me.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that, when you play together as a unit, which you have to do to be effective as an offensive line, you can be very, very effective no matter how stiff that competition is. It was truly, I thought, just a wonderful performance by the O line. Matter of fact, we still have a group from that '69 Peach Bowl. We text each other every day, so there are probably 12 of us on that the other night, and we all were nominating our player of the game. And for me, game ball goes to the offensive line. No
Mm.
doubt about it.
Yeah, and the other thing is that to me, beyond the offensive line, that tight end, Decker, a freshman, number 80, how impressive is he? In fact, and he doesn't have the physique you would expect, the sort of the linebacker playing a tight end, but boy, did he have his way with the Ole Miss, excuse me, not Ole Miss, but with the Miami defensive backfield. And boy, in the clutch, he was great. And it's just as Darren's a big IU fan. His spouse did her medical degree there, and this is it's an historic story. There's no question. IU until about a year or so ago was at the very bottom of the list in terms of percentage. They were under 500. Signetti has turned that around, and they went from literally worst to first, and in so quickly. It's just an amazing story that I think we'll probably appreciate more as the years go on. And we'll see what happens. They're doing very well, as you might expect, in recruiting. They're right up there, one or two or three in the portal. And so IU is going to certainly be a team to watch. And the politics of the Big Ten, because I spent so many years at Michigan State, the politics of the Big Ten, hey, it's really about Ohio State. It's really about Michigan. Penn State hope to be part of that. They have, I think, one championship since they joined the league. But those two schools aren't going to look very kindly, obviously, at IU grabbing a national championship. But I think it's going to add an awful lot of spice to Big Ten football. And it's always better to have another competitive team.
Yeah, parity in a conference or a league makes a huge difference in terms of the enjoyment factor for the fans, watching the game. Uh, that's one of the reasons, the NFL, I think, is so successful, Frank. I heard a stat the other day that 76% of the NFL games that were played this past season were decided by one score.
Yeah,
or less. And that's, I think, where, with the world we're in today, with NIL and the transfer portal, I think we're headed toward more parity in the
yeah,
college ranks. Indiana's a great example of that. Although, the biggest contributor to their turnaround absolutely is the coach. No question about that
yeah. Well,
whatsoever.
we saw that with Duke. Duke won the ACC. Duke is known as a basketball school. Obviously, they won the ACC. Uh, you had Vanderbilt, which was very competitive in the SEC, only a game or so out of first place. Beat Tennessee, but lost to Alabama. But anyway, another big thing just dropped today, Darren. If you can put up the schedule, talking about WVU, which is our major focus, but the schedule just dropped, I think, early this afternoon, Mick. And this is courtesy of WDTV. Uh, there are, 7 home games, which is a
Yep.
good thing. 1 game on a neutral site. We knew that. Alabama's out. Virginia, that's going to be down in Charlotte. We've played there before. What's your first? We haven't had a chance to really a lot of time to study this. But what are your thoughts about that schedule? What do you think?
Well, I think it's very favorable for the Mountaineers, particularly, we got two games right in the beginning that I don't want to say they're going to be pushovers. I mean, Coastal Carolina is always tough, no matter who they play, and anything can happen on any given Saturday. But I like the fact that we had those two games that aren't Power Four schools that we can kind of get the motor revved up and going before we play Virginia, and that's going to be one heck of a contest. I mean, Virginia had a
Sure.
great year this year. I watched them several times, and they came close to winning the ACC. I
That's
think
right.
it came down to the last game of the year for them. So I think we can get off to a very good start in those first three games. And then we have Oklahoma State, which had a terrible year last year at home. So I think that inures to our favor as well. And then comes, the travel part of the schedule. And the good news here is we only have 5 away games. Let's see, one, two, three, four. Yeah, including the neutral site in Charlotte,
Yep.
where the Virginia game is going to be played. That's the one area where we've really got to concentrate this year. Last year we went 1-5 in away games, and we definitely have got to improve on that record to have the turnaround in the second year that we hope to have. The fact that we have TCU and Texas Tech, back to back, uh, isn't really encouraging, but there is a bye week in between
That's
those
right.
two games. So we won't have to stay in Texas for for 21 days.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the toughest part is TCU and Texas Tech, back to back, and given last year's score in the Texas Tech game, and I think they ended up number one in the portal in the Big 12 this year. So they're going to be tougher next year than they were this year. And then finishing up, with a couple back-to-back home games in early November with Kansas and Houston, which I think are very winnable games. And then finishing up with Utah away. So, I think it's a schedule that fits very well with the way this team's developing.
Yeah, I agree. And what's interesting about Oklahoma State, new coach, we think there's a lot of movement. We're going to talk about the portal later at in Morgantown. They have 100 players in and out since last season with a new coach. And so the other thing is, if you could put that up back up again, Darren, just for a second, the schedule, then we'll finish this up and bring Wes on. Is that the way I look at things now? Is that you got to ask, where's the money? Who has the money? Who's spending it? And there are 3 schools on that schedule that are way ahead of everyone else in the Big 12, but one is not on there. The one that's not on there is BYU. The
Yep.
schools that are on there come later. TCU, Texas Tech. Texas Tech is the king. I said last week, I think they may rename Lubbock Cha-Ching, Texas, because of the money they're spending. But TCU, Texas Tech, and believe it or not, Houston. The Texas oil money, Fertitta, the money at Houston, and so they come late. So I think could and Iowa State is good, but they lost their coach. They have a new coach coming in from Washington State. A lot of their people got away, including their quarterback. So it's not going to be a continuation. I think at the same level for Iowa State. I think the same thing for Arizona. Cincinnati is better. We got them last year, but we're going to have to play them at home this year. That's good. Kansas. Yep. So it's a good schedule. I think I agree with you, Mick. And again, maybe this helps get you over the bridge of the game over on Monday. We got the schedule, and we'll talk portal, and so it's this will help us with our addiction, our football addiction. I hope. Anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm glad I recorded a few games this year, so when it gets really bad, I can rewatch them and try to not remember who won the game.
Yeah,
which at this age isn't hard to do.
That's right. Okay, let's bring on our guest. We're so pleased to have with us Wes Hours, who straddled two programs, right? You finished in 2000, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you were at the end of the Don Nehlen era and the beginning of the Rich Rod era?
No, actually, I only had.
Whoa. We lost Wes. He'll come back. There he is. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We lost you there.
Yeah. So, actually, no, I didn't. I only had Coach Nehlen. So when Coach Nehlen retired, that was my last year, and then Rod came in the spring of the end of my career at West Virginia.
Well, you were a jack. I don't want to say a jack of all trades because you're the player you are, but isn't it true you played at Morgantown? You played offensive line, defensive line, and running back, right? All three positions.
That is correct.
Isn't that amazing? Yes. Isn't that amazing?
I came in as a true freshman. It was a fullback, probably maybe the first 3 years, and then going into spring, they switched me to D-line. Going into my fourth year, we had some injuries in camp, and I went and asked Coach Nehlen, the end of camp, my fourth year, and I said, hey, I want to move to offensive line. And Coach Nehlen was like, you want to do what? I'm like, I'd like to move to offensive line. I think I can help, And, I think going to offensive line, it just teaches you so much about football. Yeah. And it helps, you're playing offensive line, and then you go to running back. Everything that's going on up front. You hear the calls. What's going on. So it definitely helped me, learn the game of football a lot more.
Now, rumor has it that when you played fullback in that 2000 year, and we're going to show a little film. You and I talked about that today. For those who haven't seen Wes, you were reputed as being the largest, biggest fullback in college football that senior year in the 2000 season. Yeah. And I think that's true, actually.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, it's been – I think ESPN made me weigh in on national TV. I want to say we played East Carolina, and I think and again, I don't remember. I want to say, it was – I was probably 300 pounds, every bit around there, and I weighed in on ESPN for the national audience.
Well, and the thing about, you're going to see it, we're going to show this film in a second here. You not only were a great rusher, you had some speed, and you were a very, very accomplished pass receiver. You're going to see a great touchdown against Ole Miss in a second here, but you also scored via the air against Notre Dame that year. And so you were a triple threat. Plus, talk about the guys you were blocking for when you weren't running or pass catching.
early on, I think Amos, I played, led for Amos a couple years whenever we had some injuries. I think, the Leroy Whites, the Anthony Greens, the Mark Plants that all played fullback. I had to step in a few times. And then Avon Coburn, was just, all Big East, set the record and all that. So it was great to block for those young guys back then.
Yeah. Hey, Darren, if we can show the film now, and then Mick, watch the film, but especially this Ole Miss at the end, and let's bring you on, and you can ask your questions and also your comments about what you're seeing on the film. If you could put that up. Here it comes. There's no sound here, so we can talk over it. This is a Notre Dame game. Notre Dame game.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, so Brad Lewis was our starting quarterback, and he had some issues with his hands, so we brought in Scott McBrien.
That's right.
And he threw me
That's it.
I want to say maybe my first two career touchdowns, maybe.
Now this is the Ole Miss one, Mick. Now, heaven forbid this defensive back. Great fake. He's out. He's in the flat. Now, okay.
Goes.
Boom. Unfortunately, the Mountaineers lost that game against Notre Dame. It was the first time they came to Morgantown. But you beat Ole Miss in your last game, and the crowd went nuts. And it's always good going out. You can see 2 fourth-quarter TDs against Notre Dame, one in the air, one on the ground, both in the fourth quarter. And then you also had another 2 touchdowns, one in the air, one on the ground against Ole Miss in the Music City Bowl. So why don't you come in here, Mick, and what'd you think about what you saw, particularly that as Greg always said, you were the runaway beer truck before there was a runaway beer truck. Yeah. Go ahead, Mick.
Very impressive, very impressive. Well, as you know, Wes, one of the key indicators of a person's talent that the coaches always use is your time in the 40-yard dash. So I got to ask you, first of all, what did you run the 40 in? Do you recall?
I ran the 40 at 4.6.
No way. No way.
Yes, I did. I did. My senior year, I was clocked at 4.6. So, I always consider myself a fast, fat kid.
I mean, that's defensive secondary speed.
It's not normal. You typically don't have a 300. I mean, back in those days, I don't think you did. Nowadays, you're seeing these guys that are going to the combine, the workouts, they're 300 pounds and you got guys running 4.5s. I mean, the training and stuff, but they're doing these days and the quickness it was definitely different for somebody of my size to run that. I had very soft hands, which I credited. I didn't catch a lot of passes in high school. I just had soft hands, and it was something that helped me, through my career.
Now, going back to high school, we were talking earlier. You were in Maryland. You played high school ball in Maryland. Is that correct?
My last 2 years. So I had my father was in the Army. So I up and moved every 2-3 years, 4 at the most. He was retiring 20 years from the Army. So I moved back to Maryland, kind of by Frostburg, Maryland, and went to school for just 2 years of my junior and senior year of high school.
And what was your primary position in high school? Were you defense, offense, or were you a running back?
I did both. I was at a small school that you didn't have, you only had, 30, 35 guys on a team. So I played my junior year. I actually was a tailback, believe it or not. And in my senior year, I went to fullback and played middle linebacker both years.
So did you have games in which you played both ways in a game?
In high school?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I played both ways
all the time,
every single game. Yeah, that there was. I mean, we just didn't. We didn't have the affordability to have. There's just no way.
Yeah, I was the same way in high school myself. But how about when you got to WVU? Was there ever an occasion where you played defensive tackle in a series and then went over and played offensive tackle in a series?
No, actually, I know. So, like I said, the first 3 years I was primarily only a fullback, and then
Okay,
I moved to D line. Actually, never even played D line in an actual game
actual game.
because I was
Okay.
moved. I was moved after the season, and then going into my fourth year is when I had asked to move to offensive line, and I played offensive line my whole fourth year under Coach Legg. I was a guard. I was offensive guard.
And how'd you get to WVU? How did the recruiting process come about that got you from
Um,
Maryland over to WVU?
it wasn't far, so only I was only about an hour, probably about an hour drive, 66, 70 miles from where I went to school to WVU. My high school coach Gary Marsh picked up one day. We had sent them film and never heard nothing back, and he drove me up to West Virginia to meet with Coach Nealon. The running back coach at that time was Coach Robinson. And when I walked in, they didn't really know who I was. They thought by watching, the VHS tapes that we had back then that I was shorter. I was, they thought I was only about a 5'10", and I was actually, 6'1". So they were shocked with my actual size. And from that on, they just, kind of started recruiting me.
What was your weight there when you were a senior in high school when you
Um,
were being recruited?
Probably 245-ish, towards the end. I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, when I reported to the first day of camp at West Virginia, I want to say it was about 265, somewhere around there. But I was, 250, 260 back then.
Yeah. There was always an emphasis back when I played in the 60s of making weight, we called it. On a Monday morning, we'd all have to go weigh in. And if you didn't meet your weight goal uh, for that particular week, then you got to go down to Old Mountaineer Field at 5:30 in the morning on a Wednesday with an assistant coach that was none too happy to be down there with you at 5:30 in the morning, and you got to run the stadium steps until you threw up. So there was
Yeah.
always an emphasis in making weight. Was that the case when you played? Was that ever uh,
Um,
difficult for you, or you just
I yeah, I don't think there was never really anything where we had a weight that I had to beat to. Um, they obviously wanted you to try to be around some weight, but you get to college, you start gaining a little bit of weight, and that's kind of honestly that's what happened. I put on some weight and I got a little bit stronger because I really didn't lift in high school. And when you don't lift in high school, when you get to college to a Division I program, you got to lift and well, I mean, you lift, you put muscle mass on, and you gain weight. That's just what it is. So that's when we kind of moved, and we went away from a little bit of the fullback era my junior year. Is when I moved, so really wasn't a position of fullback that year, so then obviously I played guard, and I was a bigger guard, and then go back to fullback my senior year.
and how did that transition go for you when you went from being a fullback to offensive guard? Was that difficult to make that transition,
Um,
or
I always considered myself a physical person. I love to hit. So you obviously have to learn how to block differently when you're using your hands more and you're at the point of contact. But I think what it did was help me become a better football player. When I moved to the offensive line, you hear the calls. You're in there every day. You get to make the calls, and so when I go back to running back, I hear them making calls. I know what's going on. I'm not just running to the 2 hole or the 4 hole. I know how they're going to block it, and it just improved my football game going forward.
gotcha? So, talk a little bit about, if you would, about your role as a blocking back when they had you in that fullback position when you were blocking for Amos and was it Avon Colburn? He was the other one.
It was Avon. Avon was the big one my senior year. Is yeah, like I only played. I didn't play very many games of fullback leading up into my senior year. But
Okay.
so predominantly I blocked for Avon, and what we ran. Coach Nealon was the ISO guy. I ran ISOs. I led up in straight on the middle linebackers or the Sam. I would kick out on the powers. And, if we ran toss to the outside, I'm leading to the outside on whoever came up to try to, defensive end, safety or corner that would come up. So, just learning to block, use my hands, and getting to the point was most important.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of technique involved. Having played on the O line myself, it's almost as much the mental aspect of the game as it is the physical aspect. I mean, you can overpower somebody. I was always kind of jealous of defensive players because all they had to do was just get to the ball and make the
Yeah.
tackle. And you didn't have all the schemes. There were certainly there were defensive schemes, but not like you have on the offensive side of the ball. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, defensively, you play with all physical. Just go. All your main job.
Go get
Not that you don't have like you said, a scheme, but you get to just go. You just play football. Offensively, you have to run to where they're going to be, and then at some point you got to be under control, and you got to match footwork and to do this. So it's I don't. Football's hard as it is. I don't think it really matters, what side of the ball you play on. It's hard. It's physical. You're going to, but it's definitely, I think, a little bit more strenuous to play offense because you have to know kind of what everything's going to go. You got to think, about 2 steps ahead, what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. One final question for you. Now I'll turn it back over to Frank here. I don't want to take up all the time, but what was it like? What was it like playing for Don Nealon? How did you enjoy playing for him? And would you describe him as a player's coach or a coach's coach?
Yeah, his door was always open. So if you had an issue, you had a problem, you just go in to see Coach Nealon and you could talk to, if you had a problem, you went in and seen him. He was an old school coach. He believed. So, going into my senior year, we're getting ready to go to the bowl to Ole Miss. And our running back coach at the time, it was Coach Hazel, left for another job. So here we are, past 10 weeks past the season already preparing, and we're doing one-on-ones. And I'm like, hey, Coach Nealon, listen, I'm kind of beat up, at the end of the season. Can you take it easy? And he didn't care. We're doing one-on-ones. It didn't matter.
Get after it, regardless.
Yeah,
right?
it didn't matter that your body was beat up because you just went through the whole season. But that's how he was, and what he did for me, it was just phenomenal. Like I love him to death.
Yeah,
and that is Mountaineer football, just as you described it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Frank, I'll turn it back over to you. That's about all I had.
Well, I enjoyed listening to you two guys. The thing about Nealon, I think we're seeing a similar situation up in IU. It's not just the coach. The coach doesn't have a chance to coach if the athletic director doesn't hire the coach, and that was a stretch when Don Nealon was hired. Coming from Michigan. Great program. Obviously, he coached under the great Bo Schembechler, but there's no road that leads really directly from Ann Arbor to Morgantown, and he brought some of the staff members with him, like Denny Brown. But the fact of the matter is, what a great hire. When you think of football and basketball during that time, you had 2 great hires. You had Gail Catlett in basketball and Don Nealon in football. And those 2 guys have accomplished the same thing. They're the winningest, longest-serving coaches in the respective sports in the history of West Virginia. Just incredible. Really was an era. But one of the things I wanted to explore with you was your pro career, because when you talk about your speed, I'm not surprised at that. You could see that. You could see that in the touchdown run against Ole Miss. When you think about that and your size and your versatility, no surprise you spent 7 or 8 years in the pros. Talk about, you were an undrafted free agent. Talk us through your played for 3 teams in the NFL, and then went into the Arena League and actually played for a champion. I think in 2008 you played for Philadelphia that was the champion that
I
year. So
did.
talk with us about the NFL first, and then the Arena League.
I think coming in college, every kid wants to go play in the NFL, and I didn't even really think that it was going to be possible. Just wasn't something that you obviously want to. So season ends, and you start getting some calls from agents, and hey, I want to sign you, and I'm thinking, want to sign me for what? And then you got a little bit more interest. So starting, you narrow it down, you pick an agent, and then you hear, hey, this guy might like you, this guy might like you. So you work your tail off. The draft comes. One of the most stressful times, just sitting around waiting to hear your name, and it doesn't get called. And I didn't expect it to. You're always hopeful. Then you get a call as soon as the draft's over with. You get some calls. Hey, we want to sign you. We want you to come there. So I chose, actually signed a free agent deal with the Indianapolis Colts, and so I go there. Play there for my first year. I didn't play at all. I was on the active roster. I didn't play much. We had a really good fullback by the name of Jimmy Finn there. Was with the Titans a little bit as well. Played there. Actually caught one pass from the late Steve McNair. And then second year of the NFL. Coach Moore, who I was with in year one with the Colts, gets fired at the end of year one. So they bring in Coach Dungy. I didn't make the squad. I was actually the last player cut on that that summer camp. So that was a tough pill to swallow. So my agent and I, we kind of regroup. Want to know what's going on. So I signed a free agent deal with the Steelers. I was going to do NFL Europe. Ended up not doing NFL Europe and just stayed in camp with the Steelers, and didn't make it there. I got cut from the Steelers. Actually had a game where I was a tailback for the Steelers against the Cowboys. And I want to think it was like a Sunday or Monday night football game in preseason. I caught the game-winning 2-point conversion, which was pretty funny, and I actually played really well. And I thought, my agent thought that we had a really good chance of making that roster with the Steelers back when they had, Jerome Bettis. It was, just a talented roster. Just, didn't make it. The NFL's not really easy to make a team. You got to be really great. Now, the fact that I got there and had that opportunity, is really good, and I was thankful for. So, NFL dreams kind of go away after that, and then. You start hearing, hey, this arena football wants to. And I didn't really know anything about arena football. So I took some visits out to San Jose, team out there in L.A. And then I played my first year in arena with the L.A. Avengers out there. It was, gosh, you couldn't ask for anything better. I stayed in Marina Del Rey. I lived 2 blocks from Venice Beach. I mean, I walked to Venice Beach every day. Our apartments were a block from the ocean. I mean, you could open the door and played there for a year. Great time. Had a wonderful time. Still have some really good friends from, them. Going into my second year, our quarterback from LA actually was a free agent. He came to the Philadelphia Soul. Well, they had an injury from the fullback, in arena back in the day when I first started, you played both ways. You didn't have a choice. You had to play offense and defense. So he actually got hurt, broke his hand. So I ended up getting, shipped to Philadelphia, and I played about, 4 or 5 years in Philadelphia. It was just great.
And then you won it all.
We did. So my last year playing, we went and we played San Jose SaberCats, and we were in New Orleans. We won. It was, great time. So the greatest thing about playing for Philly is the majority owner was John Bon Jovi. It was great. One of our owners, GMs, was Ron Jaworski. So that was always great. He was around a good bit. And like you said, we won it all. Going into the year after, the arena actually folded.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of ceased operations for whatever reasons, and we just never I never made it back. At that point, I was pretty good with the career that I'd had, so pretty much just was done.
Yeah. But, wow, that's what a great story. When you think about from Maryland to WVU, playing multiple positions, and then getting a taste of the NFL, and then going out a champion. Talk a bit about your family and what you've been doing professionally since the football side of your
You
career
know,
ended.
kind of. It's funny. I played many positions. I've did many things since being done football. When I lived in Kaiser before, I actually live in Fairmont now. I moved out here in about I think 2019, around 19 or 20. I've been coaching high school football out here in Fairmont at Fairmont Senior High School for some great. Actually, had two head coaches now. The one for the first couple of years was Nick Bardick. He actually retired from coaching, still a teacher, and now our head coach name is Mark Sampson. I've been a pleasure to be a volunteer out here. But early before, when football's over with, I was actually a bailiff, the head bailiff in Mineral County, West Virginia, for the judges. Did some things transporting things like that. Before that, I worked at a children's home and was a treatment associate with the troubled youth, just trying to mentor some of those kids.
Wow, a lot of diversity. We were talking earlier about autobiographies. You should write one because you'd have some great stories there. No question
Yeah,
about it.
being you had to learn to cope with different
Mm-hmm.
situations. With my dad being in the military, every 2 3 4 years we had to pick up and move. And when you're a young kid, it's kind of easy because you don't grow roots. When it got a little bit older is when it became tougher because you grow roots, you get really good friends, you start to do things. So it was tough towards the end, but you always find a way to adapt. So that's kind of I had did the best was adapt to whatever situations I've needed to do. Family wise, I have a wife and I have two boys. One's 26. He actually was a very good high school football player at Kaiser, West Virginia. Kaiser High School. Went on to play some football at Robert Morris University in Pittsburgh.
Sure.
So that was good. And then my youngest played here at Fairmont. I didn't coach my oldest. I coached both boys in Pee Wee football all the way up through middle school, and then was actually able to coach my youngest when we moved out here to Fairmont, and he did very well. He's actually his last game of his high school career. He set the state record in a championship. He rushed for 6 touchdowns in the game.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Now
amazing.
he actually this is his second year. He's at Cal PA, just down the road from Fairmont, not too far.
Great. Fantastic. Let me just stick a score in here. We have an unusual situation tonight that the basketball Mountaineers, both men's and women's, are both playing Arizona State. The women are at home. That game is concurrent to this show. Started at 7. And then the men are playing on NBC Peacock out in Tempe at 9. And the women, now ranked 22nd, are ahead of ASU 25-17 with about 2.5 left in the first half. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. They've got
Absolutely.
a really good team and so on. But you and I talked earlier today, you follow football. Obviously, you have a special place in your heart for the Mountaineers. Obviously, the game is a lot different today from the time you played. I don't know if you should laugh or cry, but the fact of the matter is very different. In fact, one person said the other day, and it's true, every year the players are free agents. You've got to re-recruit them or they're going to leave. At any rate, before we get into that, we'll talk about WVU and the portal in a second. But your thoughts about WVU football over the last few years, what you're seeing with Coach Rodriguez, your thoughts?
Yeah, they've been in a situation where they've struggled the last couple of years. uh, I think it's just always been tough. At first with the NIL comes out, I don't know that we can just match the funds that everybody else has. I don't. We can't match the number. Kids are asking for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $1,000 just to come on a visit. And when you're in the mountains, and it's cold, and I think it's just tough to get the recruits to come out this way. And I know, since Rod has came, it's definitely good, listen to the portal and the kids that you got. Obviously, I see, I'm half an hour from Morgantown. I see, what they're getting. They did a wonderful job with this whole portal stuff.
Yeah. In fact, this might be a good time, Darren, to slap. It doesn't make any difference either the offense or the defense, and we'll bring Mickey in on this too. This is the defense, and so again, the numbers are stunning in terms of players coming in and out. I
Yeah.
mentioned Oklahoma State, a total of 100, and maybe even more than that are in and out. This is just the portal. This is not the early recruiting, and the second recruiting period is going to be next week. Well, 2 weeks, the 4th. I think it's the 4th of February. Anyway, you got 76 with respect to the portal, 32 players in, 44 players out. This is as fresh as noon today. Thanks always to Keenan Cummings. We've had him on the show several times. This is on 3 rivals that are now combined. And right now, the portal class is ranked 18th. And as we said last week, a lot of people are confused about this. The way that they have proprietary formulas that On3 has, this measures a team against itself. So the way to look at that 18th ranking is that in terms of improvements on the positive side, West Virginia has the 18th best improvement from its last roster. It doesn't compare West Virginia to BYU or Houston. It compares it to itself. And we're 4th in the Big 12 behind Texas Tech. I mean, you look at the numbers in terms of the amount of money that's changing hands. I'll tell you, Wes, it's talk about a shootout at the OK Corral. Texas Tech's winning it, hands down. I mean, it's just amazing. And so you really can't compete with Texas Tech. They just can't.
It's the money. I mean, it's Texas. It's the oil. I mean, I know we're talking about West Virginia, but look, with Indiana, what's going on? You listened the other day. They had Mark Cuban on ESPN on one of those, and he's got unlimited money, and once you get to a program and you win, the boosters, the alumni, you can only imagine what they're going to get from now. They just won a national championship. So, the money that's going to come in is just, is going to be unreal. You listen to Pat McAfee, I watch him, and the alumni, the doctors, the businesses, everything, that come out of there is just great. So, they're going to have just a blank check basically to write.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about that. In fact, On3 rivals actually gives the amount. Indiana's right up there. And, these big schools, historic schools, they're sleeping giants when it comes to that. And so look at Duke. The money flowed for years on basketball. Now they're showing some strength in football. Same thing with Vandy, both basketball and football. But if you could put that offense back up again, Darren, let's take a look at some of the players here. Also, let's go to the bottom first. Mick, your thoughts on this. What's interesting about this is that 44 players out. I want to get your thoughts on this, Mick. 44 players out from last year's team. And relatively few are going to power schools. 9 of them. And you can see where they're going. UNC, Tennessee, Arkansas, Wisconsin. Gallagher's going to Arizona. Fawn's going to Miami. Arkansas got a couple of guys. and Jones is going to Virginia Tech. But what's interesting is that either, the rest of the 44 either are going to group of five, one player's going to Glenville, and then you have a number of players, 23 of the 44 have not been picked up by another school, including Nico Marchio. And so one of the things that seems to me, Mick, is that it's dicey for the players. I mean, there are real benefits, but it's also dicey if it doesn't work out for you.
Certainly is, Frank, I'll tell you. And I don't think anybody's burning any bridges. My understanding is if you do enter the portal and nobody picks you up, then if the coach and administration wants you back, you can come back to the school. One of the things in terms of transfer outs or people entering the portal to leave WVU that just totally astounded me was the number of running backs. I mean, when you take a look at it, Jaheim White, who has been picked up by Coach Brown in North Texas, he entered the portal. Dior Hubbard, Clay Ash, Sincere Byers, Canyon Katzer, and Ty Edwards. They all entered the portal, which just simply amazed me. So you wonder, why? I think that's about every running back we had last year. I can't think of another one that we had. So the only thing I can figure is those guys enter the portal for one of two reasons. Number one, they're not getting the playing time that they thought they would get, so they want to go somewhere else, even if it is, the group of five instead of the Power Four conference. I think the kids want the playing time. Or they're renegotiating their NIL contract and they're not getting as much money as they thought they were going to get. So they decided to put their name in a hat and see if they can find, more money elsewhere. So I was amazed at the fact that just about every single running back that we had last year entered the portal. Surprising to me also that Nico has not been picked up by anyone yet. I thought Arizona, as highly talented as he was and where he played high school ball, would certainly, grab him up in a minute. Also heard some rumors that Florida State had offered him when he decided to come to WVU. So I thought he might end up at Florida State, but he did not end up there yet. And I even heard, and this is all conjecture, I heard a rumor that Pitt offered him $4.5 million to come and play at Pitt since he beat him twice, and he refused just on the general principle of things. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. That's just a rumor I've heard, by the way.
Wow.
I heard that too. Darren, if you can put that up, and let's bring Wes back in on this to key off of what you said, Mickey, because it is glaring on this running back. Now, Cam Cook, I got his numbers here last year, were just unbelievable. 1,700 yards, 16 TDs, 30 passes, 300 yards. He seems to be it. That asterisk, if you look up there, some of those players with their full names capped, those are the highest rated according to of the WVU recruits, highest rated according to On3 Rivals. But what's interesting is, and this is where I wanted to bring you back in, your lookalike is a guy named Caden Luke out of Arizona. He's a big fullback. Now, what's interesting is I don't have him on this list because this is the list that comes through On3 Rivals, which is verified, signed, sealed, and delivered. Now, WVU says Caden Luke, and I'm looking at a list right now that I have from WVU that says Caden Luke is ours for 2 years. but I didn't put him on this list. If he, in fact, does sign, my guess is he's going to be right there in the playing rotation along with Cam, as together with Cam
Cam
Cook.
Cook.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have you heard anything about Caden Lute at all?
I mean, probably just I mean, they put him in in different probably formations, but you look at the Luke kid, the coming from Arizona. You're not going to look at him as a guy that's going to be toting the ball,
Yeah.
15 to 20 times a game. So, and maybe he hasn't enrolled yet, is why I mean, you would think he would be enrolled because I think the semester just started. They haven't been, they've been back for maybe a week, a week or two at best.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you hope he's there right now, going through the winter workouts that's going on right now, because this is when you learn if you got football players, when you go through these winter workouts, because they're just extremely, extremely taxing. But you learn also what type of football players Coach Rod is bringing in. They find out who the players are.
Yeah. If you could put that back up again, the offensive side. Let's look at some of the players here. Obviously, this Michael Hawkins is highly thought of, coming from, and again, one of the things we're seeing this year, much more than last year, are Rich Rod and the group picking up Power 5 transfers. You see a lot of Power 5 schools there. Hawkins is supposed to be the real deal. And so there's going to be a battle, obviously, for with him and Scotty for quarterback. But one of the things too that is really important, you didn't have to watch WVE for long last year. We talked about it endlessly, about the need to upgrade that offensive line, and so you can see a couple of asterisks there. Now, one of the things that's interesting is Cam Cook, the highest rated, as I recall. He only has 1 year of eligibility. DJ Epps, who's a very highly thought of wide receiver out of Troy, he only has 1 year. But this Epps kid, 47 receptions for over 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, 23 kickoffs for 600 yards. We've needed that on the kickoff side. So he's going to be well thought of, and he is well thought of. But if you look at the offensive line, Wes King from Wyoming, Amari Grayson, again from Jackson State. You got 2 kids there from Jackson State. And, of course, now we've got the offensive line coach from Jackson State.
Coach Trickett.
Yeah.
Rick
and then
Trickett.
you got, Carson Cassidy is one of the highest rated players, too. He played, in fact, the numbers here. Let me pull this up. I don't have it on the front page here. Carson Cassidy, where are you? Here it is. He started all 12 games for UConn, 780 snaps last year.
I don't think he didn't let up a sack, I believe, in his career, correct? Or was that the Wyoming kid?
I think that's true,
right.
Mick. That offensive, Mick, that offensive line, it looks like it could be much, much better.
Well, and that's a good list right there, but you don't even have the Brown kid, who was you coming from the PA, the Harrisburg PA,
That's right.
That flipped his commitment from Penn State to West Virginia.
This is just the portal.
And I played with his dad, so his dad was younger than me. That kid, looking at him, is just a flat-out stud.
He is unbelievable. Mick, you were going to say something?
Well, a couple points I wanted to make here. No doubt the offensive line is going to be tremendously improved with the kid we just talked about out of Pennsylvania coming in, with these transfer portal kids that we've got coming in, and with Rick Trickett coming in as a new offensive line coach. I think that in itself is probably worth one game, us winning one game instead of losing one game, just having Rick Trickett coaching the offensive line. So I think when you look at the portal and the transfers we picked up, I did some thought thinking, in what areas did we improve the most? And I got to put the offensive line right at the top of that list. I would list the punter as a tremendous improvement of what we had last year in terms of punting and kickoff. And our edge rushing capability, I think, is going to be greatly improved over what we picked up over the the portal transfers. The one concern I do have, Frank and Wes, is I did a count here. I don't have it completed yet, but it appears that the ones you have listed there, Frank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them only have 1 year of eligibility, which is
yeah.
that's a little concerning. I mean, if we're going to build something long term, need more, like the kid from Francis, the kid by the name of Francis is coming out of LSU. That kid is a true freshman. He's got 4 years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
The quarterback from Oklahoma, he's got 3 years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
And we've got to get more people like that, because you can't have these one and done players come in and expect to build the continuity into the program. Let me make one final point here, and I'll turn it back over to you. It's something that Wes just mentioned: winter workouts and spring practice. Last year, Rich Rod was so late in getting in, getting named as the coach, and beginning to recruit in the portal, that the vast majority of players that we got through the portal last year didn't show up until summer practice. I mean, a lot of them didn't meet their teammates until the 1st of August. I don't have the exact number, but it was over 30, I know. Whereas the majority of players in the portal this year are already registered for school. They're participating in winter workouts, and they'll be there for spring practice this year, which will make a tremendous difference, I think, in terms of continuity.
Absolutely. What you're saying is true. We're a little bit better this year than last year in terms of longevity. Of the 33, we've got 11 that are have 2 years of eligibility if they stay, 3 with 3 years, 5 with 4 years. But still, now, Darren, if you could put up the defense, I want to key off something that Mick said about go to the special teams. And look at Jack Cassidy from Western Kentucky. He has 1 year of eligibility left. Get these numbers: 72 kickoffs for an average of 63 yards with 51 touchbacks, and he was 3 for 3 from field goals. Only 1 year, but the bottom line is, we've been saying this on the show, we have trouble getting the ball into the end zone. And he's really going to help.
I know, speaking, we're kicking last year towards the end of the season, we had a kicker by the name of Nate Flower, who actually I coached here at Fairmont Senior. Wow. And I think once he got his chance toward the end, he was doing all right. And not that he was given a lot of chances, but I know he's got a heck of a leg. Obviously, you bring a kid in from somewhere that has those stats, they're already looking at him. But the Nate Flower, it was given a chance, I think would really. But with this portal, you bring somebody in, you pay them money, you're not going to throw money away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about weaknesses. One of the weaknesses we've had over the last couple of years is the backside. And if you look at, again, the asterisks, you can see that Latimer is highly thought of out of Wisconsin as a cornerback. Wilson out of Memphis is a highly thought of as safety. Bradford out of LSU. You got seven players on the backside there. And, not all of these, I'm trying to think of how much Latimer has. He only has 1 year, but last year he had 422 snaps at quarterback, 22 tackles, 1 forced fumble. And what's another one there that we can pick up? Let's pick up Jake and we see what we got on Bradford. Trying to find him here. Oh boy, I got him listed by when they signed. He only played 5 games last year and then redshirted. But the thing about Bradford, because he redshirted, he has 4 years left. So I feel a little more confident about this defensive line, especially the edge guys that they've brought in, which is becoming. I saw data the other day that said after quarterback, edge is one of the highest paid in the nil scheme.
In the NIL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well,
that's
if you
where you put the pressure on them.
You put pressure on a quarterback. That turns into picks. That turns into things that just help football in general. So there's no pressure on a quarterback. You let them sit back there and pick you apart. That's no good.
Absolutely, we've seen it. We've seen it so many times, not only in college ball, but also we've seen it in pro ball. And I'm trying to look for where is he here? Come on now, Haystrip. Why can't I find it? Probably because
talking
spell.
about pressure here. Look at Mendoza until the national championship. He had more touchdowns than he did incompletions. I know Miami got after him, and he didn't have a terrible game, but he didn't do as good, and that's what pressure does to a quarterback. I mean, it just changes the game of football.
That's right. Well, one of the guys to consider is this David Afoho. Come 2 years left, played at Bowling Green. Matt plays good ball, 37 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. I've watched Bowling Green, but I'm not that familiar with the team. But the fact of the matter is, he's ours now, and so that again, if you could put it back up just quickly, that defense, they signed more defenders than offense, but as we saw in the national championship, boy, you got a great quarterback, but if you don't have that line doing what the line did, as you said, Wes, giving him time to throw, it makes a whole different situation. And it's interesting that they picked up 3 special teamers here. If you think of just the D-backs and the special teamers, that's 10. Right? Yeah. Not as many linebackers as I thought. And what's interesting is none of those is among the highest of the WV recruits. So we'll and what we haven't done yet is we haven't blended these together. You made a great point with Brown. We haven't blended the
true freshmen coming in.
Yeah, and there's another signing period in a couple of weeks. The other thing, Mick, and let me ask you this, because when you said what you said, I said to myself, wow. Okay, we got 32 in now on the portal as of today. I think they brought in 49 with the first signing. I think your limit is like 105. So the question is, I think it's around 105. So if those players don't get picked up, there may not be room for them.
And I think how some things work is they allow some of the kids that are on the roster right now to go through spring ball, to maybe get film, and maybe try to find a chance to go through spring ball. At the end of spring ball, you put yourself back into the portal. But I also think, some of these kids might go into the portal and they may have burned bridges. It's just not being told, hey, I want to go to the portal because I want more money. And, ultimately coaches have to fill those spots. So it's not that you burn a bridge, but grass isn't always greener on the other side. You enter the portal and you might not have a chance to come back because that spot is filled.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a good point, Mick. That's an excellent point.
Still astounded by the fact that Nico Marchio
not
picked up on anybody. It's just really, he's got 2 years of eligibility left. He's a great pocket passer. He's not the dual threat type of guy that you want. Speaking of dual threats, by the way, this kid Hawkins out of Oklahoma, he was ranked as the number 3 dual threat quarterback in the nation by one of the rating services. So he's exactly what the type that Rich Rod is looking for. So it should be a real battle between he and Scotty. It'll be great to watch them. What I'm really looking forward to are these high school recruits that we're bringing in. The kid from Pennsylvania, not the offensive tackle, Sieg. Was that his name, that was committed to Penn State, and then he left when the Penn State coach was fired? Those guys should be able to make an immediate contribution to the team, as should, I want to mention one other guy here who's not associated with the portal, but I was real happy to see that Brad Mosier, who was the number one player in the state of West Virginia, played for Princeton High School,
Yep.
and
Yes.
he's signed with the university. And let me tell you, this kid could be a first year contributor as well. He not only won the Kennedy Award as the best player in the state, he also won the Randy Moss Award as the best receiver in the state. So, I mean, we've got some freshmen that I think will be starting for us, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, that's always good. If you got a freshman coming in that can start, a lot of it comes from the program that they come from, because they have to learn, you have to learn how to lift. You have to learn how to be a pro, especially the way that the college is now. I mean, you're a pro. You're essentially, a professional athlete, and you have to know how to practice right, how to lift right, how to eat right. And, if they're groomed to be that way and they can come in and help right away, that's a tremendous, tremendous attribute for them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If we're
By the way,
fortunate.
let me go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead, Frank.
I was just
No, I
going
was
to
just
say, I
saying,
just want to
if we're fortunate, we picked the right people in the recruiting process, which I think we have. I'm looking for big things this year, guys. Looking for big things this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, anything's got not anything, almost anything that we do though, it's got to be better than what went on last year. And I understand we had a ton go to the portal, and you pick up from the portal, but we got to find a way to be consistent. And if you don't have consistency from all your players, then it just makes for a long season.
Mm-hmm. Does.
Yep.
I was just going to make sure that I added, in addition to Keenan Cummings, Vernon Bailey provided those stats that I was on the players that I was getting.
Yep.
They do a great job there, and we really appreciate the diligence and also the quality that On3 and Rivals, now that they're combined. Just those are along with 24/7. That's sports. They're the best. So. But yeah, I think, and the other thing we talked about this, Wes, is that Rich Rod more than anything else is building a culture, and he's got to have the guys that are in that culture. And I don't think there's any mystery about why he picked up Trickett and why Trickett wanted to come. I mean, talk about eating stones for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, it's
he's as old school as it comes, and
that's right.
I get there's some new age coaches but. Listen, when you're an old school coach in the way that you're taught and you teach the kids, it's phenomenal, and I love it. I love the old school mentality. So, what he's going to bring, we actually have a kid from Fairmont Senior at West Virginia, a center by the name of Trevor Bigelow.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked to him about it, and he said, Trickett ain't been there long, and he's already he's laying down the law, which that's what needs to be done.
We had him on a couple about maybe a year ago, and I still remember. Yeah, oh yeah, and one of the things I remember about that, we asked him. It may have been Mickey. Asked him about what do you do to build your team? The we feeling. He said, "Yeah, these guys are in their trucks and they're out fishing. They bond by fishing. Yeah, these guys go out, and they're out there fishing. They come back." And they were great.
Not to interrupt you guys, but I know. So I just had an engagement Saturday, and I talked to actually Trevor Bigelow's dad, and they were going. A couple of the linemen were going to go duck hunting, so they were up at a farm here in West Virginia practicing, maybe doing some skeet shooting, preparing to get ready to go duck hunting together.
How about that? Well, that's it.
That's what it takes.
That's exactly what it takes.
Yeah, hanging out with your teammates, not being separate, not being an individual. Individuals don't win football games. Teams win football games.
That's right.
And I think I heard Mickey talking about, about the national championship game with Indiana's offensive line. Those guys hang out. They want to be together. They want to do stuff together, and that's what wins football games is a team. They're not one person, single individual is going to win a football game.
Boy, true words.
Exactly right.
Well, I got some bad news here. The Mountaineers gave up the lead, the Lady
Oh man.
Mountaineers. Oh, it's 31-27 with 5 minutes left in the third. So we'll go watch that. We're just out of, this went so quickly, Wes. Mark Parsons, Mark. Mark said, oh, you're going to love Wes. He's terrific. He's going to be a great guest. And in Mark, we trust. And so I know he's watching. He's
thank
watching
you guys
tonight.
for having me. This is a pleasure talking about football. It's just this is what basically I live now. Through the high school season, high school's over with. I'm a fantasy football junkie. So I love to talk ball all the time.
Well, I hope you'll come back because we're going to ask you to come back.
Absolutely, you guys. You have my number.
Well, and also we do a pre and post game show.
Okay.
For every Mountaineer, and we always have a former player. Mike Fox was with us a number of times. We're going to have Mike back on the show in a couple of weeks, and I will say, I'd like to meet you personally and stand next to you and feel like a midget because I stood next to Mike Fox this summer, and my neck is still, I think it may have cracked looking up at him. I mean, he a big man.
Yeah, I'd love to say I'm the same size, but I'm not.
No,
so I'm only. I think the years of compressed isolations that I've had on linebackers have made me shrink. So I'm not even sure I'm 6 foot tall anymore. Yeah. But that's just what you have.
Oh yeah, it's the game. Mick, wasn't it a joy to have this guy on? I mean, just another what a fabulous guest. And why don't you, while you're still with us, Darren, if you could put up the guest for next week, talk about another legend, a guy who, Curlin Beck, my God. The first time I can remember, because I had left West Virginia, was that Oklahoma game in 1982. And I was trying to do double duty, watch that game, but I also was a best man at a wedding. And they wanted to know why I was always in the bar while I was watching the TV. But OU grabbed the lead, and it was Curlin Beck's touchdown. And I can't remember if it was a long pass or a long run. I think it was a long run that got the Mountaineers back on top. And that one of the biggest wins in WVU history, and it was the win that really was a table setter for Don Nehlen's regime back in '82. What a win that was. And we're so pleased to have Curlin. He's going to be with us next Wednesday night on the 28th of January. We look forward to that and look forward to having Greg back with us too. Mick, final comments on your part?
Hey, just an honor and a privilege having you with us tonight, Wes. Really enjoyed meeting you and look forward to having a varsity club get together up in Morgantown for a home game sometime and come up this fall.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. This has been a great time.
Well, thank you. It was just educational, informative, and a lot of fun too. And I hope everybody watching either live or in the archive will believe and feel the same way. For Frank Fear, Greg Christ, who's unfortunately not with us tonight, Mickey and Wes, we wish you a very good week. Watch those Mountaineers. The end of the game is still 31-27. The men are on at 9 o'clock tonight on NBC Peacock, and we'll see you next Wednesday night on Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. For Darren, Mark, and the crew, take care.